Shabbat Shalom, everyone. And Shabbat Shalom, everyone who's joining us online. Join me as we recite the blessing before reading the Torah portion today. Today's portion is Parashat Behar, and we'll be reading in the book of Vayikra, Leviticus chapter 25. But before we do, join me as we recite the blessing. Baruch et Adonai Mevorach. Baruch Adonai Mevorach leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bakar banu mikol ha'amim. V'netan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai Noten HaTorah. Bless Adonai, the Blessed One. Blessed is Adonai, the Blessed One for all eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, King of the universe, who chose us from among all the peoples, excuse me, and gave us his Torah. Blessed are you, Adonai, giver of the Torah. Amen and amen. Today's portion, Behar, again, Leviticus chapter 25. We're going to read in the Hebrew, verses 1 through 3. And it says, Vayedaber Adonai el Moshe Behar Sinai lemor. Daber el bnei Israel ve'amarta alechem ki tavo'u el haaretz asher ani noten lachem ve'shavta haaretz Shabbat la'Adonai. Shesh shanim tizra sadecha v'shesh shanim tizmor karmecha ve'asata et tevuata.
Leviticus 25:1. Adonai spoke to Moshe on Mount Sinai, and he said, "Tell the people of Israel, when you enter the land I am giving you, the land itself is to observe a Shabbat rest for Adonai. 6 years you will sow your field, 6 years you will prune your grapevines and gather their produce. But in the 7th year is to be a Shabbat of complete rest for the land, a Shabbat for Adonai. You will neither sow your field nor prune your grapevines. You are not to harvest what grows by itself from the seeds left by your previous harvest, and you are not to gather the grapes of your untended vine. It is to be a year of complete rest for the land. But what the land produces during the year of Shabbat will be food for all of you, your servant, your maid, your employee, anyone living near you, your livestock and wild animals on your land. Everything the land produces may be used for food. The year of Jubilee. You are to count 7 Shabbats of years, 7 times 7 years, that is 49 years. Then on the 10th day of the 7th month, on Yom Kippur, you are to sound a blast on the shofar. You are to sound the shofar all through your land. And you are to consecrate the 50th year, proclaiming freedom throughout the land to all its inhabitants. It will be a yovel for you. You will return everyone to the land he owns, and everyone is to return to his family. That 50th year will be a yovel for you. In that year, you are not to sow, harvest what grows by itself, or gather the grapes of untended vines. Because it is a yovel, it will be holy for you. Whatever the fields produce will be food for all of you. In this year of yovel, every one of you is to return to the land he owns. If you sell anything to your neighbor or buy anything from him, neither of you is to exploit the other. Rather, you are to take into account the number of years after the yovel when you buy land from your neighbor, and he is to sell to you according to the number of years crops will be raised.
Join me as we recite the blessing after reading the Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata betohenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, King of the universe, who gave us the Torah of truth and planted eternal life within us. Blessed are you, Adonai, giver of the Torah. Amen and amen. You may be seated. And when we're standing, if you can't stand up physically, just stand up inside. Amen? Today's Torah portion, Behar. I remember this is one of the first portions that I ever taught. And, when you look at the name Behar, on the mountaintop, or in the mountain, by the mountain. In this portion, you see where it all began at Sinai. Everything that we know today, everything that we're looking for that's coming up, it all, in effect, began here. I want to give you a little overview of the portion, and I want to talk to you about a particular aspect like we usually do. On Mount Sinai, God commands Moses, or he communicates to Moses the laws concerning the sabbatical years and also the Jubilee cycles. He talks about when you come into the land, you shall keep the Shabbat, thank you, to your God. 6 years shall you sow your field, and 6 years you shall prune it. In the 7th year shall be a Shabbat for the solemn rest for the land, a Shabbat for God, and you shall neither sow your field nor prune your vineyard. Now, what this doesn't mean is that you can't collect anything and eat from it. That's not what it's saying. What it's saying, you can't do work to cause it to, you can't fertilize it or prune it or water it in a way you would do in a regular year to cause it to yield fruit. But if there's fruit, can you partake of it? Yes. Another thing you can't do, you can't have any type of fencing or barrier around it to stop animals from eating it or to stop other people from eating it. And so it is referred to as ownerless. It's kind of like because of where we live, we see a lot of this. You can imagine if every 7 years, the owners of the properties around here, they opened up their gates where you can come in and you could remove food from it without any threat or of getting arrested or, kicked off the land or that kind of thing. So he talks about that. They talk about Shabbat. And then you get into Jubilee, which is basically, it's like a super Shabbat. It's like the Shabbat of Shabbats, right? They talk about in here this idea of when you lend something to your neighbor, or you give a loan, or you sell something. If, say, the Jubilee started tomorrow for hypothetical purposes, and I sold you something at full price today, knowing that tomorrow I would get it back. How does that sound to you? That doesn't sound right, does it? Now, if Jubilee ended yesterday, Yovel ended yesterday, and I sold you something at full price, knowing in 7 years, then I would get it back. That's a whole totally different idea. So this idea is that, come on, really? You're really going to try and sell me something at full price today and I've got to give it back to you tomorrow? What does that say about how you're treating your brother or sister? Oppression. And what does that say about what you think about what God said to do? Yeah. And what does that say about how you look at God and how you relate to God, or how you treat your neighbor or treat your brother or sister as a way of showing you love God? So this is the greater idea. I love God, but I'm going to sell you something for a full price today and get it all back tomorrow and think nothing of how that affects you. This is the idea and understanding that God had placed into the mouth of Moshe to give to Israel. to tell them how to treat one another. Because if you can't treat your brothers and sisters right, then how are you going to treat the enemies? How are you going to, that idea. So we come down to the 7-year Shemitah cycle, and we get to the 50th year, the year of Jubilee, where, everything is free and able to rest and able to reset and to get a fresh start everywhere with everything. Last week I heard someone say, I don't know where it was, but they said, well, we just celebrated Pentecost. And I thought, no, you didn't. For a couple reasons. One, there's only one day of Pentecost, Shavuot, and it's on the Jews' calendar. They're the ones who have it's on their calendar. It hasn't happened yet. Two, you can't celebrate Pentecost without bringing in full, without bringing an offering to the temple. There's no temple. You can't celebrate it fully outside the land because there's no temple. And even if there was a temple, you can't bring crops from America to there. And then if you're not Jewish, it doesn't apply to you even if you are living in the land. So there's all of these things that you have to check off, check, to see, do they apply to me? Can I actually do it or not? So what if you can't do it all? Does it mean you don't do any of it? No. We're going to keep on hammering this part away because this is one thing that we're free from obligations that don't apply to Gentiles, that don't apply to living outside. They don't apply to Jews who live outside the land. They don't apply fully when there's no temple. They don't apply fully if you're not a farmer. So if you're a doctor in Israel and the temple's up and you're Jewish, does this apply to you? Still doesn't apply to you because you're not a farmer. This makes sense? When we hear people talk about, keep Torah or I'm Torah observer, all these things, they're in their heart, what they're conveying is that they love God and they want to keep His instruction. And that's a wonderful thing. And then at the same time, you want to keep it right. Does that make sense? You want to keep it right. That being said, concerning Jubilee, I hear people say it's every 50 years. Is that true or not? This is a buzzword question. What'd you say? Yes and no. She said yes and no. That's a real good answer. So why is that? Huh? Because there's no temple. And if there's what else isn't? If there's no temple, and why would the temple be required, right? Huh? There's no Sanhedrin. You guys are putting a lot of good pieces into the puzzle and filling in the blanks. Why does that even matter? Well, you have to be in Israel. You have to be Jewish and a landowner who owns the rights to the produce, for one. So that's one big one. Then there has to be a temple. And there has to be a high priesthood. And there has to be a high priest to declare Jubilee. So has there been a Jubilee since the last temple stood? No. Have there been things that have been like, see, we keep coming to this like Jubilees? Yeah. Well, how come there hasn't been a Jubilee? Because there's no temple for one, and there's no high priest to declare it's a Jubilee year. Yeah. Who's they? So that's another important. Well, but there is no high priest. Yeah. So basically, I think a better question, and really what you're getting to, is when there is a temple, when there is a priesthood, will they? And the answer is yes. Yeah.
I remember a few years ago, Christians.
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
Declaring that this was the year of Jubilee, but I was in Israel that year and I didn't hear one word about it.
Because it wasn't Jubilee.
And I thought that I would hear it.
Yeah. And so when you look at that, yeah, and even in the best situation, I would say, this is something Rabbi Bernstein said some time back that I really liked. He said, people are trying to do something good and they mean well. So you have to take it at that level. On the other hand, it's not. Is it a Jubilee? No, it's not. It's not. So this is why it's so important to study what the Torah actually says, because it didn't change. You know what? When did the Shemitah change? And when did Yovel change? When there's no more temple. But here's what's interesting about it. Why did the first temple fall? What was the impetus that pushed the children of Israel into exile in the first place? They weren't keeping Shemitah. Okay? So they weren't keeping Shemitah. They weren't letting the land rest, but they also weren't. There was great avodah zarah, great idol worship, pagan worship. So if you're worshiping pagan gods, the gods of all the nations around you, will that cause you to want to keep God's law or not? No. So you see kind of how this chain, the different links in the chain, that's all connected. I'll let you write that down for a second. So the first temple, and so we get these, keep them straight, the first and the second temple. The first temple was destroyed because of Sinat Hinnom. Baseless hatred, Jews against Jews, Jews killing one another. Baseless hatred, sent them into exile. They end up coming back, they had the second temple. Well, then the second temple, why was the second temple? I'm sorry, the second temple they establish, and because of this idea of baseless hatred, and this is where it gets kind of tricky. There's always baseless hatred, there's always some type of hatred, and there's always some sort of idol worship. But when one is bigger than the other, then that becomes kind of the main reason, right? So they go into exile and they say, what happened? And they come up with these reasons why the temple was destroyed. One of them was, they talk about baseless hatred, idol worship. And so when they go into Babylon, they say, what can we do? And we've talked about this before. That's when they founded the synagogues. So there was no temple, so they said, hey, the three things we need to have a place to study Torah, a Beit Midrash, a house of, so let's establish a place, a synagogue. We need to there's no temple, so we need to go ahead and continue with at least we can continue with the songs and the liturgy that was done during the offerings. So you have all the liturgy, you have the liturgy. And then the third thing you have was, we don't want ourselves going out into the courts of the nations. We have our own court system. So you had the Beit Din. So those are the three pillars of the synagogue. When they went back to Israel and they established the temple again, they still had the synagogue system. Half of the people said, we want to continue the synagogues and the temple. Those would be the Pharisees. And there was another group said, oh, no, we don't need the synagogues. We just need the temple. We don't want to have anything to do with the laws of the Pharisees. So we're the righteous. We're the Tzaddikim. We're the Sadducees. So this is the big rift between the two groups. But this all goes back to this. Keeping God's one thing. Every 7 years, can you trust me to not plant anything? That I'll provide for you, not only for 1 year, but for 3 years I'll provide for you. And what's that? 3 years is a lot of food. But the rabbi said, and the sages said that prior to this instruction concerning the Shemitah being given, that it was always the same idea. They always had these bumper crops certain years that would take care of things. So it wasn't like they had never seen God do these things for them. Does that make sense? So that being said, I want to talk to you about something that comes up in here. And if you have a thought about it, let me know. This is concerning the Shemitah and the the idea of the 50th year. So you have this understanding of the weekly Shabbat. You have this understanding of the 7-year Shemitah and 7 of them. Well, if you don't keep the Shemitah in the cycle, or excuse me, the Shemitah year in the cycle of the Yovel, the Jubilee, and you keep going every 7 years, you're not really doing what you should do. Then you get to 50. Well, should you expect it to be like it would have been if you'd have kept these 7 cycles of Shemitah properly? No. And it's very interesting because this number 7 is everywhere in Scripture and has a lot of meaning. I want to talk to you about that. The number 7, it's important in counting and the experience of time. It's the 7-day work rest cycle that comprises our week. In a reenactment of the original 7 days of creation, when in 6 days God made the heavens and the earth, and on the 7th day he rested. Each Shabbat completes a full revolution of the original cycle, following which we started anew from Yom Rishon, the first day, which we call Sunday. This is why many of the Jewish life cycle observances are 7-day affairs. Now keep this in mind. Israel is a representative to the nations of God, how he wants things done. Does that mean that the Gentiles are required to observe them? No. Should the Gentiles observe them? Yes. All at the same time. And the idea is this: who's more responsible to God for this, Israel or the nations to observe? Israel. Us. Are we more responsible here to observe than most of the rest of the body of Messiah who's... Yes. So you see this idea, you see how these things exist together? It's not one or the other, and it's not always both. You have to take the context of what you're talking about to understand whether you're subject to it. Even within Israel, men are subject to things that women aren't. Things that are connected to times and Moedim, there's a connection to the men to that. Women, not so much. Women is kind of a bonus. Women aren't required to do things on Shabbat or keep the Shabbat in all the ways that men are. Jewish men in particular. So that's kind of the apex of the pyramid, if you will, and everything follows suit from there. The 7-day festivals frame our year. Passover, which runs from the 15th to the 21st of Nisan, which is a week. Sukkot, occurring exactly 6 months later, and Tishrei, 15th to the 21st. A marriage is celebrated for a full week of Sheva Brachot, 7 blessings. The death of a loved one, God forbid, is mourned for 7 days, Shiva. There are 7 days of a woman's Nida. A 7-day training, Shivat Yemi Miluim of the sanctuary. The 7-day purification period from the ritual impurity, and numerous other 7s. And that has to do with, you're impure for a week, and then you can come back into the camp. Thus, the freedom of Passover, the joy of Sukkot, the bond of marriage, the coming to terms with loss, and all these other features of Jewish life are assimilated in all 7 dimensions of created time. Our years, too, follow the cycle of creation. 6 workday years are succeeded by a sabbatical year, the Shemitah. Or you can look at it as suspension from these 6 years of work. You've heard this idea and understanding within Judaism, a day with the Lord is like 1,000 years. There's 7 years of creation, 7 years of, 7 years of man living and dwelling on the earth in the way we do. You're at 5783. So we're coming to the end. We're in the 6th day. So there's basically 17 more years of this day. That makes sense? And it doesn't matter if somebody else has calculated a day that's different than Israel, that doesn't matter. Because God gave the instruction to Israel to do, not someone new to use a supercomputer to calculate things. That doesn't matter. This is the parts we still always have to accept, whether we like it or not, or when we talk to people, whether they like it or not. In the land of Israel, all agricultural work is suspended on the seventh year, and the land's produce is declared free for the taking for all. Also suspended on the Shemitah year are the private debts in terms of servitude and indentured servants. A lot happens on this day. And this day is always connected to what we talked about earlier, Hayom, the day of the Lord. It's a great day of Jubilee. There's a lot of talk, people say, oh, well, Messiah has to come back on or during that time. There's different points of view and understanding and teachings of that. Do I agree that he'll be here on that time? Yeah, I believe so. But when exactly, we don't know. We know the seasons, but not the exact times. One last thing, the sages describe the whole human history, and this is what I was talking about a minute ago, as a 7 millennia week, consisting of 6,000 years of human labor in developing God's world, and the 7th millennium that is holy, a Shabbat in rest. For life everlasting, the era of Mashiach. The rabbis also explain in a deeper level that the 7 days of creation embody the 7 sfirot, the divine attributes which God emanated from himself to define and characterize his relationship with our existence. More commonly called within the realms of Christianity, that we are created in the image of God. What does that mean? We all don't look alike. We all have similarities, right? We're not all clones. So what exactly does that mean? Like, in what ways? Hair color? Hair length?
Arms, legs, toes, fingers. Spirit.
Hair less? Yeah. Is God bald-headed like I? No, right? Does he? What's that? Does he have white hair? Exactly. Yeah, see? Right, exactly. So, what's that? We don't know. Well, we do know. We know. We know what these, the connection to the being created like God. This is what the rabbis talked about. So 7 is not only an elemental number of time, but of everything created, of every created thing and the created reality as a whole. This is especially true of the human being who is created in the image of God. The human character is comprised of 7 drives. Here we go. These are from God. Here they are. Love, restraint, harmony, ambition, devotion, connection, and receptiveness. Mirroring the 7 attributes which God assumed as creator of the universe. We don't talk about how the world was created, how things were created. We don't go too deep into that, but it's part of the 7 attributes, but also the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. But you get this idea of we're created in the image of God, and because of that, we're like him. And we're like him in these aspects that he bestowed upon us. And you'll see these same 7 things, they come up each night during Sukkot, right? We see these same ideas and understanding when we count the Omer, that we're growing in some capacity each day, or we should be, till we get to Behar, get to the top of the mountain, if you will, on what? On Shavuot. Anybody have any thoughts before I go on? Thoughts, comments, questions? Yeah. I can't hear you? Oh, sure. Love. And you'll hear these words a little different depending on what you're reading from. Love, restraint, harmony, ambition, devotion, connection, and receptiveness. And again, these mirror the 7 attributes which God has assumed as creator of the universe. Now, people will say, well, how does Israel know these things? Well, because these things were passed down from generation to generation to generation to generation. Have some things been lost? Sure. At the same time, was the full Torah ever given? No. Yeah. Restraint. Restraint. So love, restraint, harmony, ambition, devotion, connection, and receptiveness.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Anybody, you guys all good with that? Yeah. It means that the Torah that we have is just a watered down version of what's to come. So when God gave the Torah, when the Torah was given to Israel, it was basically the rabbis talk about this idea of the minimum they could handle, and that was it. So there's, like for instance, when you're in kindergarten, do you get like advanced calculus? No, because all you can handle is 1 + 1 = 2. So when Messiah comes back, that the full Torah and the full understanding of the existing Torah will be there as well. But yeah, this is just a little bit of it's like the appetizer of what's to come. Yeah. You know what? Well, that's a real good question. I'm not sure, but I can answer that specifically as far as for the idea of if the sin of the golden calf hadn't happened, or because of that, the curses were added. Because when Moses brought down the 10 Commandments, there was no, had that sin not happened, there would be no, when we read that, and sorry, Therese, I'm doing what you said I do all the time. Therese told me last week, she said, you know, Rabbi, you drop your sentences a lot. And I said, oh, do I? She said, oh, yeah, you do it more than anybody I know. And I said, oh, okay. Sorry, I'll try not to do that, but I can't help it because I've got 20 things I'm trying to. So let me try and not drop these sentences. Okay, so let me rewind a little bit. What was I saying? Where was I? Dropped it. I'll pick it up. So this idea of, ask me the question again. I'll start from there again. Oh. There would have been it may have been stronger, but I know for sure that there would have been any curses attached, because the curses weren't attached until the second one. So I dropped one sentence again, but I think you followed. That makes sense? Yeah. Yeah.
And even in
Yeah.
Hebrews 10,
Yeah.
it says the Torah has in it a shadow
Of things to come. Right.
So it gives the idea there
Yeah.
that there's a lot more,
Yeah.
that there's more to it than that.
There's more to, there's more to it, exactly.
Stealing.
Yeah. Yeah.
In keeping with your sevens, according to the Hebrew calendar, we're in year 5874.
Okay. Uh-huh.
So that soon will be year 6000.
5784. I said 5783 before. 5784, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. No, you said it right. I said it wrong. You refresh my memory. But go ahead. I'm listening to you.
So, what happens after year 6000?
Well, so then we're in that 7th day. We're in the millennium, this day of rest, this Shabbat.
And
Yeah.
isn't there supposed to be a 1,000-year reign?
That's it. That's it. So then even a deeper question, I see you back there, is what happens after those 7 years, or that 1,000 years. Then we have the mystery of the 8th day. So if you look at what 8 represents Brit Milah, a covenant being cut. 8 represents it represents oil, represents a name being given. It represents oil, which has the connotation of anointing. So you can see this 8th day as a time of a new name given to Messiah, connection with that, because he says he'll have a new name, that he'll be anointed king, right? That there'll be a new covenant cut, and there's some other connections to 8, to Shem. Yeah. So that's all to come. Yeah. Go ahead. You wanted to have, you had a, and how's the time? You don't remind me much anymore. Okay. She used to remind me, huh? Okay, yeah, go ahead. Finish your saying. Okay. Thanks. Stay on track. So, well, we are in the 6th day, right? I've heard people say that it's a few years off. Having people say that it's 16 years off, quote unquote off. Hang on a second. You guys have me all messed up today. 5783, yes. Not 16, 216. Yes. No, hang on. We got to learn how to count. Yeah, so 216 until we get to 6,000, right? Yes?
I've heard 5874.
No, it's 5784.
5874.
I think maybe you're looking at something backwards, or they have something backwards.
Well, they may have, but that's what I read.
Is that you read? That's what I'm saying. You may have read something that was wrong, or you may have read it back. No, you get what I'm trying to say. Something is not kosher about that, I don't believe. Yeah.
Who came up with that number?
So that number comes from the date of the creation of Adam. That's how they've tracked it. Say that again.
Jubilees or what? From Sinai?
We mean, where was this information kept? Or what do you mean? I'm not sure your question is.
How did they come up with that particular number?
Because there's records that go back, way back to, there's records and information that has been passed down and written down. Now, again,
To do with the seasons and the jubilees and all that?
yeah, because they can always, they have all the Moedim. Yeah, they do, but again, it's back to the same thing. So when you go back to the original Jubilees, you can do them every 50 years. Because when Israel was keeping the Shemitah, there was a temple, there was a harvest, there was a high priest. So then what if Messiah comes, let's just hypothetically say, Messiah comes back next year, the Sanhedrin is reestablished to institute the priesthood, and there's a high priest and there's a temple. Well, does the priest have to go back and look at the Hebrew calendar to declare a Jubilee or not? I don't believe he does. So that's where, but also they have a record of the last Jubilee that was officially celebrated in the temple, the second temple, when there's still a high priest and Jubilees go. That's not that long ago. You're only talking 2,000 years, right? So you can imagine the information that is, we're kind of going all over this, but this is real good. I was reading, they have a piece of the scroll of Isaiah that's from the Dead Sea Scrolls. It's like thousands of years old, and it's identical to these scrolls today. So when people say, well, the Hebrew's different, this and that doesn't mean anything. That just basically means that I say, back in 1975, I said something was bad, and you said, okay, that's not good. Then in 1985, when Michael Jackson said something is bad, that means it's good and it's cool. That's what it means. It means that the word adjusted some. It doesn't mean that the English language is just totally nothing, no. And think of Hebrew. Hebrew is the only language given by God. It's the language where the whole world was created. So everything else can be, now, does that mean it's lasted with every, no. There's been some problems, and that's why the scripture says that in the last days I shall restore to you a holy tongue, which has happened and is happening. So people, when they look at things, on one side they see the supernatural hand of God, then the other side they get caught up in natural things. And they're both always together, right? And they haven't changed. And if we believe that God created the whole universe, shouldn't we be able to believe that God's able to keep a track of what year it is with his people?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And if he didn't, if the Jews are wrong, it still doesn't matter. They're still right. Because they were called to do it. Yeah.
Well, I have a question.
Yeah.
There's talk about like red ink paper.
The red heifer? Yeah. Yeah.
So I didn't
Yeah.
He said that according to the Torah,
Yeah.
the olive mountain
Mount of Olives? Uh-huh.
needs to be very sanctified.
Yeah.
It said, well, right now there's people that is being buried there, and
Not, okay. Yeah.
the red heifer needs
Yeah.
to be burned first in order to for the ashes to.
First before the temple?
Well, yeah, he said one.
Yeah.
According to him, there's 5 of them right now in Israel. 2 of them are
Right, right.
eligible to be,
Yeah.
and I guess the other 2 they're not. So
Yeah.
I guess after 3.5 years, they're not eligible to.
Right.
To
Yeah, because they'll be too old. So, okay, so, yeah. So there are red heifers in the land that are being watched. They haven't been totally approved as being fully kosher to do. And when that is the case, then where will they be burnt? It'll be on the top of the Mount of Olives, and that piece of property where they. So the halakha is that you have to be able to, wherever they burn them, you've got to be able to see the temple from there. So that's why it's the Mount of Olives. That's where it's been done. The property they're talking about doing it on is actually owned by someone very connected with the Temple Institute who's willing to do it. So there is a place to do it. Again, it's on the Mount of Olives. It's across the valley. It's on the top. As far as the temple goes. So yeah, that's why all of this stuff, I hear a lot of people want to put it on a timeline, this, then this, then this, then this. It doesn't have, it can all happen in a short amount of time together. That makes sense? So that you can have, because they just, a couple weeks ago, there was a big thing where they found this young priest, or not, she's not, well, he's a Cohen, and he's able to fulfill all the check marks to be eligible to do the sacrifice of the burnt offering. Not anybody, see, even within Israel, not every Cohen can do it. So there's all of that, but you're seeing all this stuff happening at once. And Messiah can come back and it can all come together, or it can all fall apart again and things can go back to normal for a time. Yeah. That kind of answer your question? Or yeah. Yeah.
According to them, it says, well, the Torah,
Yeah.
nothing is going to change. Before the Messiah comes again,
Yeah.
that sacrifice needs to be taking place in order to sanctify the.
Right, right. So, but the question is, how far in advance does need to take place? You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, yeah, he said, well, it can't happen like that. He said,
Yeah.
it's-
It all can happen like we can come back next week and you hear that some major thing happened. All of a sudden, it's made a way for them to start putting the temple back together. And look, all of Israel agrees, and so now we've got a Sanhedrin. All of Israel, all the rabbis of Israel agree, and they voted on one man to be the Sanhedrin, the leader. Well, the leader of the Sanhedrin, once he has that, then the leader can appoint the Sanhedrin. Once they have that, then they can vote on the high priest, and they can get the temple going, and then they can do the offering of the red heifer. Then they can take the ashes and put in the water and have the water for the sprinkling for cleansing of Israel. Then Messiah can come back because there's a temple for him to go to. And then in effect, the high priest could call a Shemitah year, however that part of it works. But yeah, all of it's going to happen together, or like we are right now, not at all. Yeah. And it's interesting in the Catholic Church, for those of you who've been in the Catholic Church, what is holy water? So the holy water in the Catholic Church, where does that come from? That comes from Catholicism trying to replicate, emulate the ashes of the red heifer that brings cleansing to Israel. Yeah,
My simple question,
yeah.
is the red heifer, is that a standard brown cow as we know it, or is it a red heifer?
It's not some specific breed that no one's ever seen before that has magically appeared and it's perfect from heaven, and it's not like that at all. And I just say that because people have that idea. It's kind of like, yeah, except yours has some white. So you're not qualified.
It's red like William?
It's right, exactly, yeah.
So it's not the standard brown cow?
Well, these cows came from Texas. These cows came from Texas.
So it's got long horns?
No, it's not a longhorn, it's just a red cow with red. Now, let me say this. Our piece of the Torah back there, it's from a very rare, it's 300 some years old. It's from a very rare red cow in Iraq. That's where that's from. So these cows existed in different, and I mean now these cows have been interbred. Who knows what exactly they looked like back temple time. So that I'm glad you're asking. This is really good, guys, because we get this idea sometimes, and I heard this a lot within the Christian church. They weren't quite sure, well, wait a minute, does God have to just all of a sudden beam one down to say that it's from God, or does man have a part in this to do something? And it's always been man working together with God. Yeah.
About the red heifer, I read somewhere that they could do it anytime. I mean, just have the ashes available, because they had ashes for thousands of years before that in a vessel.
That they still have some.
So it doesn't have, mean that the temple has to
But-
be built that moment, that they can sacrifice, have the ashes available.
Oh, right, but again, connected to that is the idea of a priesthood. So in order to have that's what I'm saying, all this stuff is so intertwined and connected that you won't have one thing happening unless it's preparation for everything to happen. That makes sense? Yeah. Hanson, yeah.
The latest that I've read about it from the Temple Institute is that the young man who qualifies
Yeah,
he has a lot of training to go through. And
Right,
they're
right.
still reading all of what the rabbis have said, all
right.
back generations ago of
Yep.
how they did this. And also, they're also preparing a couple of the current red heifers
Mm-hmm.
for, to produce more because of the timeline. And they said it
Yeah.
won't be anytime soon. That's
So,
what they're saying.
right, so that's the thing. So this brings up what you brought up about the red heifers. Even if they are kosher to be the red heifer, they have a certain amount of time to do this in. And or in that window of time, if the preparations aren't done to do that, then that heifer becomes disqualified. So then the idea of them breeding the heifers to produce more, you see, that's what I'm saying, it's complicated. It's not just, it's not just
There's more to it than
there's a whole lot more to it than that. Yeah.
The biggie, though, that
Yeah.
Israel's back in the land after 2,000 years. That's huge.
That's a huge part, because without that, you couldn't even, right, you can't have any type of, so, yeah.
That's why I had an interesting connection as you were speaking, thinking of Messiah working in parallel with the high priest was here. I never even thought about that before. Yeah,
Absolutely.
the high priest are going to be working together
Yeah.
in some way. And I just thought, hey, Messiah's king, he's coming, he's calling.
Right.
But I forgot, like, Torah has rules and regulations.
Yeah, and look at this. So who's the one who anoints Messiah? So we're back to the high priest again in the priesthood, and all of them working together. Shabbat shalom. So we see everybody working together with this. Anybody have any last thoughts or questions? Yeah.
Do they know when the last red heifer was?
Yes, and I don't have it in front of me, but yes.
And then the fact that they're looking for a new one says they don't have the diluted ashes.
No, that disappeared a long time ago. So they don't have that. They don't have the water, the purifying water from the ashes. This is complicated. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Go a little bit further.
Sure.
In my way of thinking, okay, the third temple
Yeah,
But when you read the scriptures, it kind of
Yeah.
seems like it's gonna be destroyed again, and then
Yeah.
Ezekiel's temple comes in.
it'll be short-lived.
There's a giant earthquake and
Yeah.
Mount Olive splits, and that whole area is flattened, except for one high mountain.
So, you want more complications to this? So what do we know about Ezekiel and Revelation? What do they have in common? Their vision. So what does a crack mean outside of time and space? A crack. That there's going to be a crack through the temple and it's going to split. What does that mean outside of time and space? It doesn't mean anything. It could be. Well, but it could, there's also this idea that it's, what is it, symbolic of. So this is what Rabbi Bernstein would tell you. It's a metaphor of something. So if we look at it, could it happen like it could? But if we look at it just as that is, it says this as a vision, then you look at the vision and the dreams that were given to Joseph about he tells the one guy, you're going to be the cupbearer again, everything's going to be good. The other guy, not so much. So you can look inside of these things and you don't know exactly what they mean, but you get an idea, right? So as far as that goes, I don't see that there's going to be a temple there that's going to last long, right? On the other hand, if Messiah comes back, can he come back without a temple and actually function? No. So that, and is he coming in and ushering the millennial temple right then? I don't see that either. That doesn't really line up with anything. So it's going to be a very short-lived, probably the least of the, but still again, this is where, this is man's efforts. They have to do this to welcome in, usher in Messiah. Or else, when is it that Messiah comes back? When his people cry out to him and say, Baruch haba b'shem Adonai, they recognize him. So if his people recognize him and usher him back, then they know he's going to need a temple. See? So it's all, what's that? So have to wait and see. It's all together at once, and these little bits and pieces that are connected, and it's like one is, it's like the proverbial row of dominoes. There has to be, in order for those dominoes to start falling, then you have to have a Sanhedrin. In order for that domino to fall, you have to have all of Israel in agreement. In order for that domino to fall, I don't know what's going to take to get every rabbi at 100% unanimous to vote one person. That's where we are. Could it be this war and everything going on? That's what I think and see as a possibility, at least. I mean, man. I mean, like appointing a Sanhedrin and appointing a Rosh Sanhedrin. All Israel has to agree upon that, everyone who votes. So if they don't, then what does that mean? That means maybe that a bunch of them die and there's only a few of them left who can be in agreement? Maybe something bad has to happen for a bunch of them to be in agreement? I don't know, but that's the first one has to fall. Or else they can have they can have a whole corral of red heifers that are eligible, but nobody to do the ceremony. And they can have a whole temple all in a box ready to roll, but no one to. So, and then you couple that with what the rabbi says is going to happen to Israel, but before we just read in Rabbi's book what they've been saying will happen to Israel before Israel comes together. Yeah.
Yeah, another thing that Institute, they actually said to me,
Mm-hmm.
because I asked them a question about that, and they said that the Dome of the Rock has to go, because that's where the temple is.
Right. Yeah.
Something's got to
Yeah.
happen, some kind of war, something's got to happen there.
Yeah. So, okay, you keep bringing these things up, Laura, which are great. But we're never going to end. No, that's okay. But look, okay, so for that to happen, the other problem is that you have a lot of the body of Messiah says that's not where the temple was. Well, you're right, and I agree too, but I can't quite say so because they've got a lot of people listening to that and thinking that it was down in the city of David. So then how does that help with unity and having people not? Yeah.
Well, I guess they cannot be on the seat of David because
Oh, because there's a lot of reasons why it can't be, because it's lower than, yeah, yeah,
I follow this guy, and actually he's a big fellow right now.
yeah,
He's a big advocate that we as believers need to study the temple.
yeah, yeah,
Because even on the New Testament,
yeah.
a lot of stuff happened on the temple.
You talking about Rico Cortez?
Yes.
Yeah, I know Rico.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
He said that actually that
yeah.
according to him the second temple is under
It's ready. Oh, he says under the thing.
yes.
There's a big synagogue down there that they built, and there may have more stuff down there. I'm sure he has his reasons for saying that. I don't know why he's saying that, but no, I respect what he has to say. He does a lot of work there, and as a matter of fact, I sent him a text a couple weeks ago about something, responding to something he posted. There's a lot that we don't know, put it that way. And there's a lot that's going to happen in a short amount of time when it actually starts happening. That we do know. And so until then, we wait. Shabbat to Shabbat. Amen? All right, I'm not even finished what I was going to say here. Anybody have any last thoughts? I'm not going to look that direction. All right, so we're good. Father, we thank you for this time we've had together. And we look forward to continuing into the service in Yeshua's name. Amen and amen. So, Shavua Tov.